Ladies and gentlemen, President Trump's former White House chief strategist, Steve Bannon, has just proposed one of the most controversial ideas of all time. And so, what's that controversial idea? A third term for President Trump. Now, I know maybe that sounds crazy, and I tell you what, we're going to have a lot to talk about today. But first, I think it's probably best if you guys just take a listen to what Steve Bannon himself had to say. Play the clip.
I'm a firm believer that President Trump will run and win again in 2028. So I've already endorsed President Trump. A man like this comes along once every century if we're lucky. We've got him now. He's on fire, and I'm a huge supporter. Want to see him again in 2028.
And obviously, anybody who doesn't like what you say but judges it as a function of a lack of intelligence doesn't know anything about you. I don't make that mistake. You're a smart guy. Oh, you know he's term limited. How do you think he gets another term?
We're working on it. I think we'll have a couple of alternatives. Let's say that. We'll see. We'll see what the definition. We'll see what the definition of term. We'll see what the definition of term limit is.
All right. Well, so you're talking about litigating this issue, because I don't want people to listen to our interview and say Bannon's cooking up an insurrection. Bannon is cooking up. You know what I mean? I want people to get a straight take on where your head is. What are you suggesting?
Chris, as you know, I've had greater long shots than this. When we supported President Trump after the election, I realize you don't believe the election in 2020 was stolen. We do. We fervently believe that.
So, folks, there you have it. To say the least, Steve Bannon just made some pretty big statements. He just said that he firmly believes that President Trump will, in fact, run for office again in 2028 and that he'll win. Now, as Chris Cuomo pointed out, as of the 22nd Amendment's ratification in 1951, presidents are capped at serving 2 four-year presidential terms. But in response to that, Steve Bannon said 2 very interesting things. The first, that we'll just have to see what the definition of term limit really is, and the second, that the Trump administration doesn't accept that Joe Biden's presidential victory in 2020 was a real victory. Now, obviously, Steve Bannon is being a little bit vague here. He probably doesn't want to reveal his cards quite yet, but if we want to try to figure out what his plan might be, we should probably start by reading the 22nd Amendment. But before we do that, I want to say real quick that if you guys enjoy the daily news coverage, consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton with my daily struggle against the YouTube algorithm. But okay, folks, take a look at this. As Section 1 of the 22nd Amendment states, no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice, and no person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected president shall be elected to the office of the president more than once. So folks, I'm going to be honest. It seems pretty clear to me that because President Trump has been elected to the office of president twice already, in accordance with the 22nd Amendment, he can't run for office again. Now, some people are speculating that Bannon is going to make the argument that because Trump hasn't served 2 consecutive terms, that he'd be able to run for office again, but personally, I don't really think that would work. Because once again, even though Trump's 2 terms haven't been consecutive, the fact remains he's still served 2 terms, which is all the 22nd Amendment really talks about. But you know what? What if the 22nd Amendment got amended? You see, around a month ago, Republican Senator from Tennessee, Andy Ogles, actually introduced legislation to amend the 22nd Amendment such that it would allow for a 3rd presidential term, granted the first 2 terms were non-consecutive. Folks, that might be Bannon's plan. Also, worth noting, this proposed amendment to the 22nd Amendment would strictly forbid previous presidents like Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama from pursuing a 3rd term because their first 2 terms were consecutive. But okay, while this might be the plan, maybe, we don't really know, is it actually realistic? Well, in order to pass a new amendment or amend an existing amendment, there are 2 ways to do it. The first path requires 290 votes in the House of Representatives and 67 votes in the Senate. And so here's the problem with that. The Republicans don't have either of those things. And as we all know, there's absolutely no way in hell that the congressional Democrats would vote to allow Trump to have a 3rd term. That is never happening. But like I said, there is another option. If President Trump were able to convince 34 state legislatures to request a constitutional convention, then he could get the ball rolling. You see, if 34 states come together and call for a constitutional convention, then they get to officially draft out the details of whatever they're trying to amend. Then, once everything is drafted up, if 3/4 of the states, that would be 38 states in total, then sign off on that amendment, it gets ratified. And so I know all of this is kind of complex, but pretty much what all of this means is that if President Trump wants to go down this route, he's going to need 38 state legislatures to work with him. But okay, so what are the odds of that happening? Well, just recently in the 2024 election, President Trump won 31 states in total, and as things stand right now, 28 states in the nation have Republican-led state legislatures. So really, what all of this means is that regardless of how you look at it, President Trump is probably around 10 states shy of actually being able to make all of this work. Now, folks, between you and me, I've spent all day trying to figure out what Steve Bannon's secret plan is, but after digging through the US Constitution all day, personally, I really only see one way that any of this could possibly work. And that would be for an absolutely massive red wave to sweep across the country come midterms in just under 2 years. You see, if Republicans overwhelmingly took control of the country and met all of the amendment criteria that we've just gone over, then technically it would be within the realm of possibility for Trump to have a third term. But here's the reality, folks. As far as I can tell, no red wave, no third term. However, with all of that being said, there is one final thing I want to add to all of this. As of just 2 hours ago, actually as I was editing this very video, we have a breaking news report coming out of NBC News in which President Trump himself speaks directly about a third presidential term. As President Trump said, a lot of people want me to do it. I'm not joking. I'm not. It is far too early to think about it. There are methods which you could do it. Then, the report goes on to say, when asked about a possible scenario in which Vice President J.D. Vance would run for office and then pass the role to Trump, Trump responded that that's one method. So, folks, there you have it. Maybe all of this actually is something that's being cautiously discussed inside of the Trump administration right now. But you know what? Here's really the most important question of today's video. Is this something that you guys even want? Do you think that President Trump should even try to pursue a third term? Or should he hand things over to someone else, maybe J.D. Vance, who knows, after he's done with his second term? Because I'll tell you what, folks, that really is the most important question. But now, before we wrap up with today's video, I want to say real quick that I've actually gone ahead and made a community Facebook page where I'll be posting additional news and updates. So if you guys use Facebook, check out the pinned comment down below and give that page a follow. But everyone, that is going to be a wrap for today's video. So please go down below and drop a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this. Please like the video while you're down there. And like I said earlier, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. Thank you all very much for tuning in today. And of course, as always, stay safe.